Hey everybody, it's your man Uncle D, the Brick City Monk, coming to you once again. I appreciate everybody for being here, all of you who have watched the video and commented or liked or emailed me. And if you have a topic that you would like to submit, please email me at imrealdbs@gmail.com. imrealdbs@gmail.com. So this question came years and years ago in a philosophy class that I took in college. My philosophy teacher was explaining how some of the quote unquote miracles that are performed in the Bible could actually happen, or how they could happen here on earth. And one of the things I remember him explaining was when the parting of the Red Sea. In that area, there were a lot of those willows, like the cattails, and the tall bambooish type things that grow. And in that area, because it's very marshy, if a wind comes along, it can split the cattails in the willow. And it can look like the sea is parted, but it's not really the sea that's parted. It's the willows and stuff that are around the edges of it.
Thank you for explaining that one to me.
Yeah,
Because
see,
that was the one I could never.
you can never quite get how did you
Yes.
part the Red Sea. But well, it's an exaggeration of what could have actually
All of
happened.
it is, but I
Yeah.
couldn't figure that one out.
Yeah, it
So
was
thank
that
you
was
for
the
that.
one.
And it's funny that you said that because literally, as I was sharing this with you,
Hmm.
that part was in my head. It's something that always pops up. But
Yeah.
It pops up and then you spoke about it.
And even the resurrection of Lazarus, there was a time where they buried people, and they used to bury them with a string down into the coffin that was tied to the person's body. I think it was the toe or something they put it on. And it was because some people would get a sickness that would knock them out for a few days. So they wouldn't really know if you were actually dead because they didn't have the technology or the acumen back then to really know. They thought if you stopped breathing, or they couldn't detect your breathing, or they couldn't detect your heart rate really, then that you were dead. So they would bury you after they had buried quite a few people alive. Obviously, they would bury you with this string in the coffin. It would be attached to a bell, and that's why they had keepers in the graveyard, because there had to be somebody there to listen for the bell if somebody was accidentally buried alive. So Lazarus could have been one of those people who had that type of illness or sickness, because it was like 3 days later or something that he got up. He could have been out for that long. There are comas that last that long or longer. And they just didn't know what it was that was keeping him asleep. And when the alleged miracle happened, that could have been the time that he woke up out of it. You just never know. So all these stories and things, even though when I was little, I would hear these stories and I would ask questions. And I was always given answers of you have to believe in faith, and you have to believe in God, and all the rest of these other things. And how much belief do we have to have is what I want to start with. How much belief is required by African American people in the United States of America? How much more of our belief do y'all need is what I would like to know. How much more? Because for 13% approximately of the population, we have over 85,000 churches in these 50 states. We have over 85,000 churches. Those are the black predominantly serving churches. That we are not talking about the big Catholic churches. We're talking about the predominantly black serving churches. 85,000. Now let's think of when you go into most churches. When you go into most churches, there are a few things that are immediately noticeable. One is usually heavily populated by women. I'll let that pause sit there for a fact, so that you can look around your church mentally and see that it's usually heavily populated by women. Two, if there are men, they are usually older men. In fact, many of the women who are there are actually older. Church is not a place, many of them, that they've begun, like these mega churches and stuff, have incorporated things for the youth and things like that. But it's usually a place for people, the people who normally go, the people who are staples in the church are usually older people. And you might say, yeah, that's good, the wisdom, and you got to have the wisdom there of the elders and yada, yada, yada. That sounds good. Here's the thing. Older people are often the people who get scammed in society. They are the people who often have things pulled over on them. They are the people who are often targeted as victims by people who are scammers. Women are often not cared for in our society. So of course they're going to look for a place where they feel whole, where they get all the missing pieces that they are not getting in their life. Which is why church is predominantly populated by women, because it offers them something that the men in their lives can't offer them. It offers them an everlasting good feeling that they can always go to. It is never going to betray them. Honestly, it's because it comes from them, but that is not what they are told. You are told it comes from your Lord and Savior. Now, I want you to think back to how many times you met your Lord and Savior. How many times you actually felt what they call the Spirit of God? How many times did he talk to you? Did he whisper to you? In whose voice did he whisper to you? Did it sound like you? I wonder why that is. I would like us to really just start asking questions. This is not a penalty situation, or this is not. I don't want it to turn into that. But the critical thinking required for religion, required for life, is absent in religion, and is absent in religion that I've experienced. And I'm not just talking about Christianity. I'm talking about religion. I'm not talking about a philosophical set of ideas. I am talking about religion. I'm talking about the worship of a god or deity in what do you call it? Ritualistic fashion. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the idea that there is something that is greater than you that is going to penalize you if you do not live according to the way this thing says that you are supposed to live. Bless you. Bless you again. That's what I'm talking about. I am talking about the damnation that you have come to expect from certain actions that you may have experienced in your life. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, where did you get that idea and how did that idea make you feel? Because for me, I know as a child, thinking that there was somebody who was always watching me that wasn't Santa Claus was the most terrifying thing that I had ever experienced. I never felt like I had a moment's peace, a moment alone. I always felt like there was somebody watching me. Everything that I did, I never felt by myself. I never felt like there was a minute that I could get away with anything, because I was always told that God was watching. He knew everything that I was doing. And if I didn't do the things that he said I should do, that I would be punished eternally. Do you know what eternally means? Without end, forever. Do you know how that expands in the mind of a child? A little person who has only been on the planet for 6 to 7 years is trying to fathom burning alive for eternity. And then our house caught on fire. Imagine what that did as I watched the burning flames. You have to watch the ideas that you give to your children. You think that they are saving. You think that it is what you need to give, but we haven't examined these ideas well enough for us to be passing them along at all. We haven't examined them at all. Because if you examine them at all, you will remember that when they talked about the Crusades, they were talking about the people who started your religion. Because all Protestant religions come from the Catholic religion, and the Catholic religion was responsible for the Crusades, in which they burned and they killed people who would not conform to Christianity. What type of loving system of religion is that? We only know religious freedom in this country because it was put into the doctrines when we got here, because this was a penal colony when it was created. They sent people over here who they didn't want. Don't let them fool you with that founding fathers bullshit. They sent the motherfuckers over here who were troublemakers that they didn't want anymore over there in Europe. Yep. That's who came here and started this country. And they knew that if they got under the same, if they began with the same ideas that their forebearers had over there in Europe, they knew that their new country would crumble. So they said, we're going to let everybody pick their own, and you can have religious freedom here, and this is what we've done with it. With your religious freedom, you have not exercised freedom one day. Because freedom would be to go and try and find out where all these ideas came from before you practice them. That would be freedom. Freedom would be for you to stand up in church and say that I don't believe that and I need proof. That would be freedom. You don't have the freedom to do that. You don't have the freedom to do any of that. You are terrified because they made sure that you would be terrified. They created ideas of good and bad and made sure that they stuck them in your head so deep that you do not even understand that most of the actions that you take that you have called sin are nothing but human things that people experience. I know y'all not ready to hear shit like that though. Y'all don't like shit like that because y'all take it to y'all trauma. And let me explain to you something about your trauma. What you call trauma, there are animals in the animal kingdom right now who experience those very same things day in and day out. And I'm not saying it's right or it's good. What I'm saying is it is something that happens. It is something that happens, and it's up to you how you interpret it. Why do I say that? A friend of mine and I were having a conversation about rape. This is a gay friend, a male friend of mine that I was talking to. We were talking about rape. And he and I, in our own experiences, came to the understanding that both of us had been in situations where we had been sexually assaulted or raped. I'll let that sink in. And in that, he and I also understood as men that it wasn't something that we could tout and trot out as victimhood. We couldn't be victims of rape as men. We understood that. So it was something that we put in the back of our minds. It really didn't affect the way that we moved throughout life, except for we moved more carefully and stayed from around men who we thought might cause us that type of harm again. We don't get to trot out our trauma and that type of trauma the same way that women do. But by that, you would never know meeting me that that was a part of my story. Again, it is how you define your trauma. And when you let somebody else define trauma for you, you have lost, you have no freedom. And when you subscribe to a religion, you have let somebody tell you what trauma is for you. You have a preconceived idea about an experience that you're going to have that belongs to somebody else that you are now going to interpret as trauma. Us and all of our intelligence as human beings, as the highest animals on the planet, still interpret these very, 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 very common actions as trauma. And they stop people from living full lives. These things stop people from living full lives. People fall into depression. People fall into catatonic states after these particular actions. Men have to digest them differently than women. I don't know a man who's had the opportunity to fall apart after having had that done to him. And I've talked to more than one man. It is more rampant than you think. And it ain't only the men who do it. So I just want to pause in what I just said real quick to make a reminder of the fact that when you women ask men to be protectors, we have the same fears of the same type of men that you do. We have to be scared of them too. We are not exempt because we have penises. We are not exempt from trauma. We are not exempt from murder. We are not exempt from violence because we have penises. In fact, because we have penises, we are going to experience more of it than you. Yes, most of the trauma that you women experience is going to be at the hands of a man, but men are going to experience so much more violence than you. Know that. And they can't trot it out as victimhood either because you got to be a man. There are definitive roles that you have to play. There are definitive roles, and because I did a video and I didn't post it, so I'm going to talk partly about it here just because it's in the back of my mind and it kind of goes. The definition of man, you have to change that idea. Your expectation of what somebody should be is keeping them from being the fullest thing that they could be. I was having a conversation about when we were born, the amount of labels that are automatically attached to you the minute you get here. All these labels that have nothing to do with you. You get here, your parents slap labels on you. They slap a last name, which has a history of it that you now have to live up to. They slap a religion on you, which has a history to it that you know absolutely nothing about. And you probably won't learn more than 5% of what that religion has done over the course of its history. And yet they'll make you practice it. Day in and day out, they will make you dedicate your life to it. They will have you dipped in water and they will have you at services regularly. And you have no idea of the trauma that that particular religion has caused people, your own people, our people, us. You have no idea how much it has caused, how much it has cost us and caused us. And yet that is now your burden to carry. You move into a neighborhood and that neighborhood becomes part of your identity. You go to a school, that school becomes part of your identity. You live on a street, that street is now part of your identity. You go to a high school, that high school is now part of your identity. You go to college, now that college is now part of your identity. Don't join a sport. Don't get into extracurricular activities. All these things carry a whole bunch of history that you know nothing about, and yet you join them and you have no idea where a lot of it came from. Your parents don't encourage you to do the history of it, to check the history of it, to find out how it began. Because they didn't. Because they were told not that you didn't have to. They were made to feel ashamed if they did. Like it was a lack of faith if you actually questioned this. If you came with new research and new questions, you were made to look like, what do they call it? Blasphemer? Or heretic. Those are words that they use to shut you up so that you won't ask questions. They accuse you of being filled with the devil. So that you won't ask questions, so that you won't look further, so that you will stay in your place, so that you will play the role. You have been put into a character that you know nothing about. A role that you are playing out day in and day out, usually trying to fulfill the life goals and missions of other people. You haven't taken your time to find out what it is you like. You were probably given the idea of what type of work it is you want to do for the rest of your life from your parents. Either that or it was the first opportunity that came your way. The reason that I have so much, I don't even know the word. I have so much to say and so many questions when it comes to religion, particularly the ones that I have experienced with Baptist Christianity and Islam. To this day, Islam has slaves. They trade slaves in Islam in Middle Eastern countries still. They tell you, and it should be, that the women are free in Islam. That should be how it is, but that is not how it is often practiced. That should be how it is. I've read the Quran. That should be how it is, but that is not how it is often practiced. And just like with the Bible, it is so much misinterpretation. And it always wondered, if anybody can answer this part, with your faith and your trust in your God, why would he deliver the most sensitive information, allegedly, into a region of people who were the most backward and had the least amount of education? If this was supposed to be spread to the world, why not deliver it to the Chinese, who already had alphabets and numbers and shit? You deliver it to Muhammad, who couldn't read or write. You deliver it to all these other prophets or people in the Bible, most of whom their name is on the book, but they didn't write it. Somebody else wrote it. The fact that some of y'all practice and spew these things out without knowing just these little tidbits is terrifying. Because in the same breath that you use to spew these Bible verses at people and things like that, you also use that same breath to condemn people according to the pages of that book. Pages you haven't researched. Pages you have no idea where they came from. Pages you are taking on faith were delivered by God. Your God, who put this planet here between, what is it? How old is this planet? 6 billion? 13 billion, something like that, billion years old, but 2,000 years ago he decided to intervene into all the events of man? Get the fuck out of here. The fact that anybody believes that is what terrifies me. You believe in this guy, but he didn't start intervening into the human history until 2,000 years ago? So for billions and billions of years, heaven watched with indifference as man terrorized and cannibalized and all these other things that we did to each other, watched with indifference. 2,000 years ago, oh, let me set this right. By giving you this book that is contradictory in and of itself, is not a clear delineation, much of which is stolen from Egyptian history and mythology. Yeah, this is what I'm going to give man to live by. Here, good luck. That's your loving God? See, I'm a movie buff. I like watching movies, particularly intelligently made movies. And I can't help but wonder, like, there are certain things sometimes that pop out in movies, and usually it's just something about God that will catch my attention. Why did God watch? Because that's something I think I got from a movie. Why did God watch with indifference for billions of years, the human development, and only decide to intervene 2,000 years ago? And if God is all powerful, the way that people believe that this God is, then he can't be all good. Because you can't be all good and all powerful. You can't have created everything in this world that exists and be good. Because everything that we define as good in this world, that's not our total experience. There's a whole bunch of bad shit too. So whoever created that has to know what the fuck that is. Otherwise, why would he create it? Maybe we the ones got it fucked up. Maybe we should call, when thousands of people die in a tsunami or an earthquake, maybe we should call that a good thing because God made it. Maybe we have it fucked up. Maybe when the priests are molesting kids, maybe that's a good thing because it's ordained by God. God created it. Maybe when women are raped in third world countries, maybe that's a good thing. God created all of this, right? And if he's all good, then it must be all good because he created it. Why isn't that a question that you stand up in the middle of church and ask your pastor though? Because that's real simple logic. You can't be the creator of everything that we know and be all good. I know that y'all like to think that that's a possibility only because it's been pushed into your brain so much that you have lost the ability to counteract this information that doesn't have a fact to stand on. You've lost the ability because it's been told to you over and over and over again to the point that the synapses in your brain have rewired in such a way that you can't even formulate a question in regard to it because you've listened so long to the fact that if you do, you don't have faith. See the brainwashing? When I say brainwashing, I mean literally.
And they put so much fear that if you question it,
yes,
that's the devil in you.
It's the devil in you.
You're scared to question it because you're too scared to go to hell because in the end, you don't want to meet up with the Lord and he say,
how about this is the other question, and thank you for that, because everybody want to get to heaven but nobody want to die. Why is that? If heaven is the good place to get to, and you believe in your heart of hearts that you have done everything to get into heaven, and you are one of the 144,000 that is going to be admitted, the motherfucker, why not die now?
Another thing I want to mention about religion that I didn't know.
What's that?
Is the Mormons.
What the?
Do you know what they believe?
Please.
That dark skin is a curse. Is a curse by God.
That's
So,
actually a Christian belief as well.
Yeah.
Well, Mormons are Christians.
Yeah, that black skin is a curse.
Mhm.
Has something to do with Cain and Abel.
Yeah, the descendants of Ham.
Yeah.
God smote their face, but you were in a region where the people were dark skinned. So if he smote their face, they would become white. Y'all are the cursed people, motherfucker. Y'all are the cursed people, and you see how everything they switch it around.
You know what?
Man is God when it's really women.
Thank you for that, motherfucker. You just opened up something.
Listen, they switch everything around. They tell you up is down, in is out.
North is south.
North is
south.
they.
Look at the maps.
It drives me insane that we do not just go get a little bit, just a little bit more. You get a little bit more, and you're gonna want much more. You are not going to be able to stop learning about the amount of information that they have kept from us. You're not. You're not. It's never ending. And
Black people need to be walking around pissed off for a real reason.
the amount of anger that we righteously deserve to feel. But the problem with that is that anger is turned on us.
They teach forgiveness. We are the most forgiving people.
We are, because
We
they beat that
tolerate-
into us.
yes.
They beat us and then made us forgive them. That was the teaching. After a good sound beating, you forgive massa. It's amazing to me that anybody in the United States can practice that.
I woke up this morning and this was the thought that was in my head. I didn't have a pen by my head. White folk have literally created a system where they get black folk to pay for their crimes, and we do it willingly.
Yeah. We do it with our blood, sweat, and tears. Who was that person that talked about that? I forget who it was. It was either a comedian or somebody, and he talked about how if you listen to some of the older, like slaves, particularly house slaves, they became so enmeshed in the lives of their masters that it became a we.
Yeah, be like, we sick, man.
We sick. If master sick, oh, we sick.
We sick, man.
Oh, we ain't feeling well today, boss. That type of thing. That's how enmeshed it is, the brainwashing. It's so much, and because they use such terrible tactics on us, they used the type of tactics that we vilify Hitler for. In fact, Hitler found out how they used segregation, and he studied slavery and stuff like that in order to do what he did over there. He studied the U.S. That's the part they don't tell you. And then after the war, the U.S. brought a lot of those criminals over here and hid them out, but that's a whole other show. So we haven't learned enough history is the problem. And that's the other problem with that is the history is what's going to set everybody free. Once we find out the truth, there is no denying the truth. Now, people gonna have a problem with it, obviously. There's some people who go die right away as soon as they find out the truth. Like, they gonna have cardiac arrest. It's gonna be a shame. But the fact is, it has to come out.
I'm gonna say this. I thought history would change somebody who's deep into religion. And I gave them historical facts.
No. It takes, you have to have a life epiphany in order to seek more, because otherwise you become so complacent and comfortable, and that's the lullaby. That's to get you into like the walking sleep, to make you get up every day, take care of your house, take care of your kids, go to work, come home, maybe go on vacation once or twice a year, and do that in perpetuity and believe that that's all you need. That's it. That's it. That's how they get in, because they make you want to feel comfortable when that's the last thing that we deserve to feel right now. We don't need to feel comfort. We need to feel all the anger so that we can channel it into something progressive. We need to feel all of that hurt. We need to feel all of it. We need to feel it, because otherwise we will feel comfortable like we are now, sitting still. What amazes me is that I don't know what number Olympics is this that we're having right now. Right now, the Olympics are going on in Paris, the world stage, and the same year that we have a presidential election. Happens every 4 years or whatever. Why do we need this amount of games and entertainment when everybody's mind should be focused on how we can pick the best leader for the country? What sense does it make to have the Olympics the same year that we need to focus on picking the leader of the quote-unquote free world? That's the same thing that they used to do in Roman times. That's why they had that big-ass Colosseum. That is your focus bowl. That's what the Colosseum is, a focus bowl. Because when they didn't want people to find out that the coffers were empty, that they were bankrupt, they brought people in and they would throw them to the lions in the middle of the Colosseum. They would have games and people competing against each other so that people would come and it would take their minds away from what was actually going on in the city. It is the same thing as the emperor has no clothes. It's the same thing. We're sitting here looking at what's going on, but believing what they're telling us. We see that... okay, I was about to get political. No, I don't want to get political. So I'm going to pause that a second. Here is the part that I would like anybody watching this video to Google. Because I did. The amount of poor people who attend church. Okay, so I have it right here. You don't have to Google it. Yeah. So, okay, so 36% of Catholics, 35% of evangelical Protestants, 17% of Hindus, and 53% of black Protestants make under $30,000 a year. Yeah. 53% of black Protestants, that is Baptists, that is Methodists, that's all that. That is an Episcopalian and holiness and all the rest of that. 53% of y'all make under $30,000 a year. Who's hearing your prayer? Who? Tell me your prayers are answered. Tell me your God is a good God. Please tell me, please. Tell me that he provides all your needs. But he leaves 53% of you below poverty. It is not him testing you. This is not a trial by God. Life is not a trial. And anybody who believes that needs more education. I don't want to say you stupid or anything like that, because the bottom line is we all do. More education is the key. Every ism that we experience is the result of a lack of education. Sexism, racism, xenophobia, all the things that y'all call phobias, xenophobia, homophobia. Y'all aren't scared of people from other countries. Y'all aren't scared of homosexuals. Y'all are ignorant. There's no fear there. Y'all are just ignorant. So, yeah, 53% of black Protestants make under $30,000 a year. Is you think God is answering white people prayers more? Is that what's happening? I'm trying to figure out how you hold on to this idea when you still are not out of poverty. What is God doing that is so good for you? What, he got you here? You still alive? For what? Because any merciful God would have killed you, put you smooth out of your misery. And you still believe that this is a good thing because you've been told that over and over again. You've been told that your life is a gift. And then you get here and you have to deal with racism, sexism, you have to deal with brutality, you have to deal with poverty, you got to deal with unlawful segregation in many ways, but we don't talk about it. All the things that we have to deal with, and we still go around talking about God is good. If God is so good, why does he not fix this? He's good. He can do anything, right? Why does he not fix this? How many of you and your friends are praying for a better situation in this world, and it is not better? But you still pray. And what I would like, and I'm not, please don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that prayer is useless thing. What I'm saying is we need more focus and education if we're going to use it properly. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying stop letting people use your energy for their good. Because that's what it is. It's at the end of the day, it is people who are stealing your focus. There are people who are stealing your joy, people who are usurping your money, obviously. And we all give into it willingly. You show up at church on Sunday and put your money in that collection plate willingly. Nobody's making you. They've scared you enough that they don't have to anymore. As long as you are in fear that you are going to hell, you are going to show up. As long as you're in fear that you need some sort of man to tell you what it is to do, that man don't know no more than you. Every answer that you need is in you. The better you make yourself, the better the answers, and the better the quality of questions you'll begin to ask. It's all about you, though. Many of us don't want that responsibility. Many of us want the responsibility taken away from us, and we want to be able to put it into the hands of Jesus or Muhammad or Allah or whomever. We want to be able to take it and take it out of our hands and put it somewhere else because we don't want to have to deal with it. We don't want to be responsible. We don't want to grow up. All of us want to be Toys R Us kids. We want it handled for us. Oh, I prayed to God. I gave it to him. He got it. What did you do, though? What part are you going to play in your success? If you keep giving it to God, it's never going to come to you. There's a part that you got to play. There's some things that you have to do. But you can, because God got it, right? Yeah. The parts I'm really hoping that we begin to look at when it comes to religion. The patriarchy of religion. They tell you that God is a man. But every life on this planet comes to a female. So how does that make man the bringer of life? The paternalistic part of religions should be an immediate dog whistle, because men aren't that type of creative. We don't create like women create. We don't bring, like females rather create. We don't bring consciousness to the planet like they do. But we have bought hook, line, and sinker the notion that a man is the bringer of life and the sustainer of life, and that a man gave his life to save your life, which makes fucking no sense at all. How is it that this man dying saves you? What does one have to do with the other? Oh, because they said so? Because that's the only connection I've ever been able to make in my 50 years, because that was always my question. Why is it? How is it? What makes the fact that this alleged Jesus dying, just because he died, how does that save everybody else? Because he was God's son. That still does not answer my question. It doesn't answer the question. How does that save the planet? It doesn't, is the answer. That's the fucking short answer to it. It doesn't. But in order to make it seem like man is saving life on this planet, that's the story they tell. It makes no sense. And besides the fact that it's ripped off from Egyptian mythology, like you could look up Homer in the Iliad. You can look that whole story up and you'll find that it was in place way before Jesus and the Bible mess. Do some research. If you are going to dedicate your life to something, make sure that you have done the research to make sure that that cause is worthy of your life. A lot of us are giving our lives and getting nothing in return. We show up day after day, week after week, Sunday after Sunday, year after year with our best intentions. And nothing, very little, if anything, actually comes of it. Your life remains the same. And I'm hoping that we can begin to invest in ourselves in that manner, and in educating ourselves when it comes to what our belief systems are going to be, because people are using your belief systems against you. They make sure that you are scared. Think about this, and I was reminded of this a little while ago by my off-camera producer, that the people who are the leaders of these institutions are often the ones most found to be perpetrators of some of the worst types of quote-unquote sin imaginable, from basic things like stealing money from the church to pedophilia. And yet these people are not afraid of hell. They will tell you Sunday after Sunday that you committing those actions will condemn your soul to hell. And yet they go out and they practice those things wantonly. And people still show up. Parishioners, people still fill the pews. It's like watching a horror movie. Because I'm absolutely terrified that people still show up. The Catholic Church should have collapsed in on itself years ago. After the first $1 billion in payouts to people for the priests molesting kids, after the first $1 billion, it should have collapsed in on itself. The fact that it hasn't collapsed in on itself tells you how much money they have. They are able to pay these kids off for the rest of the existence of that church. They are not going to stop. Has the church closed? Have they closed the diocese? People still show up. People still write big checks. They still give their 10% because they believe that that is what it takes to get into heaven. So the priests will continue. They'll continue. It's not going to stop. And there's going to be a new set of people who's going to show up and send their kids to Catholic school because they think that it's a better education. Your kids are going to get a better education, all right. They're going to get an education that you never imagined. All of this pomp and circumstance, many times I've come to the conclusion, is a matter of kitsch. Kitsch is a word my psychology advisor gave me many years ago. Kitsch, kitsch. The definition that Miss Jeannie Morris, Dr. Jeannie Morrison gave at the time, kitsch is the absolute denial of shit.
Say that again?
Kitsch is the absolute denial of shit.
Explain.
A parade is kitsch. It's a whole bunch of wonderful things and nobody is talking about problems. It's all wonderful. Sunshine and rainbows is kitsch. The Leave It to Beaver was kitsch. That's kitsch. Anything where it doesn't seem like there are real problems. And people who go to church and do the 2.5 kids and go to work every day and buy the house and get the dog are participating in a manner of kitsch. They're trying to deny that there is some human things going on. They're trying to make it look like this idyllic family, this idyllic picture, the picture that they've been told that they're supposed to express in the world. You're supposed to go and find a spouse. You and your spouse are supposed to procreate. Those procreations are supposed to be then fed into the system, i.e. the educational system, until they are into the workforce. The man who created the educational system created a system that spits out workers. It doesn't create thinkers. It doesn't create artists. It doesn't create scientists. It doesn't create geniuses. It creates workers. That's what he designed it for. He said, I don't want an army, a nation of thinkers. I want a nation of workers. That's what Rockefeller said.
Who funded the public school system?
That's who, yeah. He began the Board of Education in this country.
When you watch PBS and it says funded by the Rockefeller Foundation,
that's who they're talking about.
Street and Mr. Rogers' neighborhood
and all of that stuff.
Company.
Yeah. Because that's how deep the infiltration goes. All those kid shows that we watched growing up were funded by people who did not want a nation of thinkers. They wanted a nation of workers. And they made sure that your main objective when you became of age was to go and find a mate, move into a house, and create more workers. You have no reason, you have no understanding as to why you do that. You have created ideas in your mind as to why. You've told yourself it is because you want a family. You have told yourself it is because you want love from your kids. You have told yourself it is because that's what God told you to do. You've told yourself all these things, but you've never examined why you actually had them. You probably had them by accident. I'm going to say 50-something% or more. And the other of you thought it was your duty. Duty or accident, not choice. Even those of you who think that you chose to have kids did it out of a sense of duty. You did it out of a sense of obligation to the world, to the people who have enslaved your mind, to the people who have captivated you your entire life. You did it out of a sense of duty to them, because here's the thing that is, I find true. If you knew how abhorrent this system really was, you wouldn't bring another person here to experience it. That's a truly humane thing to do. Not bring more people here to feed into a system that we haven't corrected yet. Why do we keep bringing people here to feed into this system when we haven't even got it comfortable, but we haven't even got it to the place that we wanted? And many of you think that it's going to happen with Kamala Harris. Now, I don't want to say a whole lot about that because, again, I don't want to get into a whole lot of politics, but there is a question that I have in regard to that. I watched the video where she stood by Joe Biden after he sent $30-something billion, and we know that he sent 150. I don't know if this was in addition to the 150 or this was part of the 150 billion that he sent over to Israel when they were having the genocide in Palestine. And she supported that. She supported sending that over there for some reason. So that made me ask a few questions. I just needed to know, how much would it cost to eradicate homelessness in the United States of America? I Googled it because there have been many studies done on it. And they say, and on average, between 11 and $30 billion. The amount that we sent to a foreign country that was ethnically cleansing part of its state could have eradicated homelessness in this country in 1 year. But we sent that to somebody else. So I said, what about healthcare? Healthcare is a different story. That's a little bit out of our price range. We spend in this country on average about $3.034 trillion on healthcare. No, I'm sorry. The amount of money that it would take to make sure all Americans had healthcare is the number that I just gave you. 3.034 trillion, right? That's still 458 billion less than what we currently spend. It's still $458 billion less than what we spend now, and we do not have universal health care in this country. We could save $500 billion by just giving it to everybody. Shelters in this country cost about $8.6 billion a year. Remember, we sent over 150 to Israel. Mental illness in this country costs about $280 billion a year. That's only 1.7% of the annual budget we spend for mental illness. So I was curious about what racism would cost this country, because all of what I just said is linked to racism, and racism is still linked to the church. That's where slavery was codified. That's where they got their divine ordination to enslave not just the African people, but also the people in the new colonies that they created if they did not convert to Christianity. So unless you became a Christian, you were going to become a slave. To me, that's the same thing. So
that country where they kicked everybody out. They kicked everybody out. It was a country, was it in Italy? Or was it? I think it started with an S. They killed them, kicked them out, and they were Christian. They had to be Christian.
that was several places.
And a lot of people converted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, it was a lot of that. So for people to be Christian today, that's how weird, when you know that type of stuff happened, that they actually sent missionaries into countries, and if you did not convert to Christianity, not only were they going to colonize the place where you lived and you and your generations before you had lived, but they were going to now come in here and tell you how you were going to live. Yeah. So again, all this is backed by the beginning, the seeds of racism, which is why I don't understand why we still participate in the system. So what does racism cost? Because there's a cost to that. The amount of money that black people of color are denied when it comes to loans and all the things that we have to make up for, it actually has a number. And it's between $1 to $1.5 trillion from 2019 to 2028. They estimate that's how much racism is going to cost the country. $150 billion each year for 10 years. Is what they estimate racism is going to cost the country. Citibank did some estimates, and that's just on the African American discrimination alone. $5 trillion boost, or if addressed over the next 5 years. We could have a $5 trillion boost in our economy if we dealt with racism over the next 5 years. Do you think we're going to do it? You think Kamala Harris is going to come through? Yeah, she said she wasn't going to do anything specifically for black people. I remember that interview. But I'm getting off on the side of the road. I do want to end this saying, if you do pick any system or philosophy that you think is going to help improve your life, please make sure that the history of that philosophy doesn't involve enslaving people, killing people, ethnic cleansing, genocide, or hypocrisy within the primary institution. Like, and by that I mean the priests aren't fucking the parishioners or the little boys or the little girls, is what I'm saying. I'll say it plainly. Just try to do that. If you want to be a credit to your race, let's just do that. Just educate yourself a little bit more about the things that you believe, so that when you're out in the world, you aren't condemning people, right? Because this is a problem that I've had in my own personal life. One of my personal friends decided to jump headlong into fucking Christianity, and at the end of the day, you're condemning me based on this shit, and you haven't done the research on it. So, needless to say, we're no longer friends. But do your due diligence. If you're going to condemn somebody, make sure that you are backing an ideology that is worthy. Not one that has condemned your generations before you and your whole line. Why would you join the ideology that condemns you? Again, peddling your own oppression is not cute. We have to stop that. but I don't think we're ready yet. So I just had some questions is all, that's the only reason I came here. I just wanted to ask some questions, because honestly, when I wrote this down, because I keep like a log of topics that I might want to talk about or whatever, and this was one of the longest entries that I had written in there, and it was like everything had a question at the. It was like, what's your definition of God? What is, all the things that I talked about, all of them that seemed like a statement had a question mark at the end, and I'm like, yeah, these are. I'm curious as to how it is we can still perpetuate, carry, and teach to a whole other generation these ideas that are so backward in 3, 4, 5 millennia ago. I don't get it. We're better than that. We have more information than that. We don't have to. We don't have to. We don't have to. I just, there's no other way to say it. You don't have to. You don't have to participate in the patriarchal ideas of religion in this country anymore. They make it seem like there is freedom, but that's not freedom. So I'm hoping if there's anybody if I said something that offended you, good. If I said something that made you think, even better. If I said something that you want to talk about further, I would welcome the opportunity. I enjoy discourse. Again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but facts are facts. If you haven't done your research, do some research is the best I can suggest. So again, I'm Uncle D, the Brick City Monk. I thank you all for hanging out with me. Again, I know it's been a little while since I did a video. I got real busy. Like all of a sudden, all these projects just came up, and I've been working on them, trying to get them to the best that I can get them to. And I still have a little work to do, but I'm going to do that and try and do this by, maintaining some time management skills is really what I'm going to have to employ in order to get all of this done. So I thank you all for watching. Again, if you have any comments, or you have any questions, or there are any topics that you want to have me discuss, please email me at imrealdbs@gmail.com. Okay? And I'll see you next time right here. It's only on YouTube, The Brick City Monk. I'm Uncle D. Peace. Before we go, just one final thought for all of you faithful Christians who tithe and put offerings in the plate. Your money goes to support pedophilia. If you are not paying for the lawyers that they need to keep on retainer to defend the people who are being predators for your children, it's probably going to pay the other families that they try to keep quiet. So that was just my final thought. Y'all go on and have a blessed day.